July 30th, 1943. 27,000 feet above Germany. Staff Sergeant Michael Aruth can't feel his fingers. The tail compartment of his B-17 bomber is a brutal 40 degrees below zero. Through the plexiglass bubble of his isolated station, he watches them gathering. Messerschmitt fighters, counts 8, 12, 15 German aircraft, positioning themselves behind the American formation, like wolves circling wounded prey. "Tail gunner, what do you see?" The pilot's voice crackles through the radio. 15 hostiles, sir. I'm lining up on our 6. Aruth is 23, but his 130-pound frame makes him look 17. His crewmates call him the Kid. They joke that he needs to eat more. What they don't realize is that this undersized young man from Springfield, Massachusetts, is about to revolutionize aerial combat. What the German pilots racing toward him don't know is that they're flying straight into the sights of the deadliest tail gunner in American history. And what makes him so deadly isn't following his training. It's ignoring it completely. 6 months earlier, the skies over Europe had become killing fields for American bomber crews. During one catastrophic week in October, the 8th Air Force lost 148 heavy bombers. Nearly 1,500 young men vanished in just 7 days, killed, wounded, or dragged into German prison camps. The math was merciless. At those loss rates, America's entire strategic bombing force would be wiped out before spring. The B-17 Flying Fortress bristled with 13 machine guns. Engineers had created an airborne fortress. Yet intelligence reports revealed a devastating truth. For every 100 rounds American gunners fired, fewer than to actually hit an enemy plane. German pilots had found the weakness. They understood exactly how American gunners were trained in, exactly how to exploit that training. Military doctrine said that gunners must engage attacking fighters between 400 and 600 yards. This was the regulation distance, the optimal range. Every instructor hammered this principle into every student. But doctrine was written by men who had never fought at 40 below zero, men who had never watched friends disappear in a fireball, men who slept safely in their beds each night. Michael Aruth was born in Springfield, Massachusetts in 1919. His Lebanese immigrant parents worked themselves raw in textile mills and washing other people's clothes. Young Michael left high school after 3 years to help feed his family. The classroom never suited him. But he had something no professor could teach, the instinct to observe reality and trust his own eyes over any textbook. When Aruth joined the 379th Bombardment Group in England in June 1943, he did exactly as he was taught. He waited patiently for German fighters to reach the regulation distance. He calculated the proper deflection angles. He squeezed off controlled bursts. And he watched his tracers sail harmlessly through empty sky. He watched bombers around him erupt in flames, watched men tumble through the frozen air, watched parachutes that never blossomed. Then something inside him shifted. He started questioning everything. The standard firing range existed because, in theory, the probability of a hit peaked at 400 to 600 yards. But Aruth saw what the training manuals conveniently left out. By the time German fighters reached 600 yards, their cannons were already blazing. American bombers were absorbing devastating punishment before their gunners were even allowed to shoot back. What if you shattered that entire equation? What if you opened fire before enemy pilots expected it, before they could stabilize for their attack runs, before they entered their own optimal range? The textbooks dismissed this as wasteful, firing at impossible distances. But textbooks were written by men who went home to warm dinners each night. Over Kassel, Germany, on July 30th, 1943, Aruth put his revolutionary theory into action. As the Messerschmitts assembled behind the bomber stream, instead of waiting for them to close to 600 yards, he opened fire at 900. His fellow gunners thought he had lost his mind. Then, something remarkable happened. The German fighters scattered like startled birds. Their disciplined attack runs dissolved into chaos. A fighter pilot needs 2 critical seconds of steady flight to aim. Aruth's unexpected fire shattered that stability. Tracers reaching out at 900 yards forced the pilots to flinch, to jink, to abandon their approaches. When they eventually did close the distance, they were already compromised, flying through continuous streams of fire, their angles ruined, their concentration broken. That afternoon, Aruth destroyed 4 German fighters, but the price was brutal. A cannon shell ruptured his oxygen line. Another round jammed his gun. Shrapnel ripped through his shoulder. He kept firing through creeping blackouts, through agony, as blood saturated his flight jacket. When the shattered bomber limped home, intelligence officers were skeptical. For victories? On one mission? From a single tail gunner, but witnesses from across the formation confirmed everything. Gun cameras captured the impacts. The evidence was undeniable. The gunnery establishment reacted with outrage. This technique contradicted every principle they had spent years teaching. Heated arguments consumed 8th Air Force headquarters. Training officers insisted Aruth's success was just pure luck. But combat commanders asked a devastating question. If the doctrine was correct, why were their crews dying at such catastrophic rates? Major General Frederick Anderson made a decision that would save hundreds of lives. Test his method, he ordered. Let him teach what he knows. Throughout late 1943, Aruth's technique spread through the bomber units. The results were unmistakable. German attack patterns grew hesitant. Their pilots broke off their attacks sooner. Formations using this aggressive early fire suffered significantly fewer losses. By October, revised gunnery guidance quietly incorporated Aruth's principles. The military would never publicly admit that a high school dropout had outsmarted their experts. But the changes spoke loudly enough. Aruth completed 14 missions before rotating home. His confirmed tally: 17 enemy aircraft destroyed. No American bomber gunner ever matched that record, but his true impact went far beyond statistics. Post-war analysis determined that these improved gunnery tactics helped reduce bomber losses from 7% per mission down to about 3%. Conservative estimates suggest these methods saved at least 75 aircraft, at 750 men who got to go home and embrace their families, instead of perishing over Germany. After the war, Michael Aruth returned quietly to Springfield. He married, raised children, and resumed a normal life. He rejected publicity. His medals: the Distinguished Service Cross, the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Purple Heart stayed hidden in drawers. His children knew he had served in the war. They never knew he had transformed aerial combat. The principle Aruth pioneered that aggressive. Early engagement disrupts enemy tactics regardless of hit probability became fundamental to modern defense systems. From jet-age interceptors to the Patriot batteries and Aegis shields of today, the concept is the same. Engage early, engage aggressively, force the attacker to react. Michael Aruth died in February 1990 at 70 years old. His obituary noted his service. It said nothing of his incredible legacy. Sometimes the people closest to the textbooks are the furthest from the truth. Sometimes an undersized kid who never finished school can see what decorated officers cannot. And sometimes survival depends on one person willing to shatter the rules that are killing everyone around them. 750 men returned home because one young man from Massachusetts trusted what he saw with his own eyes over what he was told in a classroom. He never sought recognition. He simply did what the moment demanded. And perhaps that remains the most extraordinary thing about him. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more incredible stories you've never heard.